Nuance with Nikki, the nitty gritty. If it's not pretty, happy to see you guys again. For whatever reason, I feel like I'm coming out of a rut and I am in the mood to make videos. I've had quite a terrible last season, but it's great to be back in the mix. And so let's see. I'm just going with the flow. Right, so the trending topic today in South Africa, the Afrikaner refugees to the United States of America. I'm going to assume for the purposes of this video that you have some idea what that's even about, right? We're going to do a thought exercise today. Thought exercise. Guys, don't take it too seriously. I do fear this may be fear-mongering if you take it too seriously as if it's definitely going to happen. No, I don't need you guys to stress, but this is addressed to Americans. In my mind, I'm speaking to an American audience. What would happen if, and just if, Afrikaner nationalism took a hold of your country? Okay, let's get into it, I guess. Okay, so one of the things to understand about Afrikaner nationalism, this is not every single Afrikaans person that is white Afrikaans speaking South African person. Please, it's not even the majority. If you can differentiate between a Jew and a Zionist, you most certainly can differentiate between an Afrikaner and an Afrikaans nationalist. And I will ask you not to use videos like this or the latest trends as an excuse or a reason to be unnecessarily nasty to someone who is South African, white, and Afrikaans, right? For years, you have had South Africans in your country. South African citizens who are also American citizens make up about 80,000 people in your country. Okay, a large number of those will be white. So please don't scapegoat them for the stuff that I'm about to say here. Okay, the group of people we're talking about are people who are nostalgic for a system you must have heard of by now called apartheid. Apart-hate, not apartheid. Okay, it wasn't a party. We were not having a good time. Okay, but let's get into some of the mindset. Okay, so from my perspective, translating South Afrikaans nationalism into Americanese would look like this. If, theoretically, the FDLS in Utah, so that's the fundamentalist church, what is that, Mormons, right? If the FDLS, right, had a mass wedding with the KKK and they baptized these perfect Aryan babies and raised them in their values, and those kids grew up apart from everybody else to believe all of these values, and they grew up, a lot like maybe the Amish do apart from everybody else. But in this case, with a deep undercurrent of white supremacy similar to that of the KKK. They grew up raised with this and they worked really, really hard. The best of those people, if they strove really hard, might almost be as good at racism as an Afrikaner nationalist, the ideal Afrikaner nationalist. Okay, so I just want to give you some insight into the way that these people think. Now, for many people, this is shocking. It is new. It is like, what the hell? For me, this is kind of old news. I went down this rabbit hole back in 2017, 2018. I moved back to South Africa after one of my presidents was impeached. Okay. So around that time, this topic was also trending, but not to the degree that it is now. I'm seeing it trend in new circles, and many people, both on the South African front and outside, are very surprised. And I'm not. That was during the first Trump administration, right? And so I was like, Nikki, is this video going to be fear-mongering? I do remember thinking, do I think this is going to happen in America? No, I don't think it is going to happen. My current belief is, nah. I trust the resilience of American people. They will totally be able to handle this, blah, 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 blah. Then I realized I said that exact same thing in November of 2016. It was a Wednesday. I went to work that day. And I swore blindly to everybody at work, the Americans will never vote in a certain president. Lo and behold, he became president that time. When it happened again, I was like, oh yeah, definitely going to happen this time. And it did. And I was not remotely surprised. And I was surprised that anybody else was surprised. Either way, That's neither here nor there, what my opinions were on that. That's not what's important. I want to prepare you for what you would be dealing with theoretically, in my estimation, my opinion as a random South African, not a scholar or anything, if theoretically this took place, okay? So, the people you're dealing with, let's go back about 100 years. They have this concept of khafar. Khafar means danger, okay? But they have different levels of khafar. At this point, they're a highly traumatized people, okay? Having been through a lot and having done a lot, okay? So the first kind of khafar, which wouldn't surprise you, would be swart khafar. Swart khafar, okay? That means black danger. So that was their fear of black people. It's a very fear-driven way of thinking, right? The next one that they had was called rooi gevaar. That means red danger, aka a fear of Russians and communism. Okay, sounds unsurprising right now. Then they had Joodse gevaar. By the way, these Afrikaner nationalists that have just been imported into the United States would have been raised with this kind of vocabulary. Joodse gevaar is Jewish danger. Okay, and then what else is there? Engelse gevaar. That means a fear of the British and a fear of English speakers. But mostly a fear of the British. Rooi gevaar, swart gevaar, Joodse gevaar, Engelse gevaar. I can't really think of any others. But the point is, this way of looking at outsiders as a gevaar, a danger. Okay. Tied into their sense of nationalism and their racism, you might find it unsurprising, is their sense of religion and identity. Right? So, they have a prophet, a white people's prophet. And back in 2018, I actually watched a video. And I wish I could find it for you, but I'm not going to go searching. Okay, just so that you're clear. Any claims I make in this video, I fully encourage you to fact check. Where I'm showing you receipts, it'll be because those are the ones that I can stomach. I went down this white supremacist rabbit hole back in 2018. And it's fascinating to go through once in your life, but kind of made me so sick I don't want to go through it again. So if you want to go down the rabbit hole just to inform yourself, I ain't stopping you. In fact, I'm kind of leading you in that direction. I'm telling you, I'm too much of a wuss to do it twice. It makes me sick. Sorry. You know? And when I say sick, it's even with compassion for them. There is a pain there, a trauma there, an ugliness, an evilness, a culture of lies. That is in the ideal Afrikaner nationalist. Okay, that's not necessarily the people. Like, I don't want to demonize every single person just because. Okay, I think you get my heart. Let me not over-explain it. Okay, so there was this notion of gevaar, danger, swart gevaar, rooi gevaar, Joodse gevaar, Engelse gevaar, right? And then there was a prophet called die Siener. Back in 2018, I literally saw them, so white supremacists from America and white supremacists from South Africa, they had this like Zoom meeting that they put on YouTube. And the white Americans were just like, oh, and I can't remember the title of the video now, but they were just like, they were looking at them with so much admiration and they were just frothing at the mouth. I can never forget the look on that man's face. I just can't remember his name. You know, and they're behind this whole thing, the white genocide myth, okay? But you decide for yourself. Okay, so before we get too serious about it and tell you about the prophet, I just want to do something cheeky. Let me just find it, okay? This was supposed to be my icebreaker. I forgot about it. Great stuff. So how can I put myself, I noticed my last video, I hadn't put myself quite out of the way here. Let's go. Uh-oh. Nikki.
This is your brain when you're...
Okay, whatever.
Some of 49ers here in South Africa, just for ease. So I want to start with Charles Kleinhaus because his interview is pretty extraordinary. He spoke to the BBC quite a long form interview. His family, he says, he had a family farm in Mpumalanga province in South Africa, very beautiful, very lovely. And Charles spoke a little bit about how difficult it was to make the sacrifice of moving to the United States of America. He said, I had to leave a 5-bedroom house, which I will lose now. Also had to leave behind his car, his dogs, and even his mother. I didn't come here for fun, he adds. Now, you know...
Meneer Kleinhaus, can I ask you a question? Which one is it, buddy? Which one is it? Are you lying through your teeth or are you a failure as a son? Which one is it, buddy? Which one is it? Because if you are telling the truth and there is a genocide in South Africa happening towards white people, why'd you leave your mama? Why'd you leave your mother behind? What kind of boy are you? Wat het jou ma vir jou aan jou gedoen? Wat het jou ma aan jou gedoen, joh? Okay. Whatever. You guys can believe Charles. I'm cool with it. I'm not fighting this battle anymore. This got exhausting back in 2018. People talking about they're going to come to South Africa and start crusades. Okay. Anyway, they haven't come. Writing chicks that their asses can't cash, as how my husband would put it. So, Siener van Rensburg. Siener means the seer. He is a prophet of the Boere people, right? And so basically the white South Africans were reading these prophecies to the white Americans in the video that I saw back in 2018. But the thing is, I kind of had a problem with the translation and interpretation. Okay, I have some understanding of what they're saying here. This level of Afrikaans is not the Afrikaans we speak today. This is a lot more like the Afrikaans. This is a lot more like Shakespearean English is to me, right? I understand it, but do you know what I mean? But I still, from what I could understand, I was like, but how did you get to that translation? How did you get to that interpretation? The thing is, there are no English translations. There are no English translations. There are only English interpretations of parts of his prophecy in the first place. So people who don't speak Afrikaans, a language spoken by 3% of the world, and you subtract from those 3%, okay, that would be white Afrikaners, just outnumbered a little bit by colored South Africans, that's my race, outnumbered a little bit by a small percentage of black South Africans. I don't know if people know this, but a small percentage of black South Africans speaks Afrikaans as a first language. That small percentage in number is greater than both white and colored put together. Interesting, hey? Or is it both? Is it bigger than just one of us? Whatever. It's just a larger number than people even South Africa are aware, right? So they're not the kinds that are likely to be reading about Siener van Rensburg. There are many South Africans that have never heard of him. Nicholas die Siener van Rensburg. So Siener, not Siener, means the seer, and his name is Nicholas Janse van Rensburg is his surname. Okay? And so don't take my word for it when I say there are no actual translations in English. This dude, I just found this channel now, and then it inspired me to do this video. He is going to tell you, and he's doing a translation right now, and he says he's making no interpretations. But listen to what he says.
Why translate the visions of Siener van Rensburg into English? Doesn't an English translation already exist? The short answer is no. No complete English translation of all of Siener van Rensburg's visions exists. The only English translations are of the books by Adrian Snyman, which cover less than half of the visions. The English books of Adrian Snyman also only cover his own interpretations from his perspective, where I try to include interpretations from multiple sources so you can be well informed and measure the interpretations against each other. This prevents any interpretations from forcing certain scenarios or an agenda. The translation process is complex and time-consuming, and I need your help to continue this work. Please.
Okay, so do you hear what he's saying? I felt exactly how he articulated it so beautifully. I felt that they were forcing their interpretation. So what I'm about to tell you is not haterization on Sina van Rensburg, because I actually find his visions, when I read them, to be quite harmless. So before I show it to you, this guy's going to read it to us now, but before I show it to you as Americans, can I just speak to my South African family, okay? I'm going to try and read it over here. Where did I put it? Okay. In die noorde kom 'n groot swart bont mofspan osse uit. Sorry. 'n Swart bont mofspan osse uit. So, from the north comes a spotty group of oxen. They're coming out, right? Reg na die suide. So they're going right towards the south. Toe kom 'n ooste rooi bil en nog rooi beeste uit. So it says, and then out of the east, red bulls came out and more bulls came out, right? Now you can interpret this thing about oxen and bulls in any way you want, okay? In the English translation, it says stuff like the bulls out of the east that are red are Russia or some shit like that, right? I swear, like, I'm sorry, but I feel like people personally are forcing agendas. You go and translate your own thing. We live in a world of Google Translate. You can copy paste it and go and figure it out for yourself, okay? As I said, this is a rabbit hole of white supremacy. I feel like we're looking into the Afrikaans Illuminati. Illuminati. I don't know. Illuminatamati. Whatever. I'm just letting you guys scratch the surface of this stuff, okay? So, let's look at more interpretations. Just random ones, okay? I think this was the first one. I think it's one I just read, actually.
Vision number 250. Senior sees. Wagons flee in a line to the north. From the southeast comes a red bull, chasing the wagons. From south to west is a bare hill with gravel holes on it. On the hill to the right are wagons fleeing, and behind them is a thick cloud of dust. The wagons disappear. Interpretation by Boy Moosman. It relates, amongst others, to the Namakwaland diggings. Interpretation by Nelly van Zyl. People flee in a line to the north. From the southeast, Natal, comes a communist leader, chasing the fleeing people. From south to west is a difficult trail, and it is turbulent, the holes. In the hill to the right, people flee in secret, in such haste that dust clouds the air. Then they disappear. 21 August 1916. Vision number 251.
Okay, are you guys getting the kind of thing that I'm saying? Stick with me here, whether or not you find him interesting, because these are the kinds of people, white supremacists in South Africa, your white supremacists in America, take them very seriously. And they take the prophets of the white men very, very seriously. And they're not even getting the translations. Like, they're not getting a direct translation, they're getting an interpretation. Okay? So, from what I remember, you know, I went down the whole rabbit hole, and it was a few years ago. From what I remember, the idea is that Sinner foresaw apartheid falling, right? And then he foresaw it coming back. He even apparently predicted Mahatma Gandhi, according to their interpretations, right? And then it was going to come back sometime around now, but kind of in Namibia or Botswana, just a little bit north of us here in South Africa. Okay, so Namibia, Botswana, are you paying attention? Because, yeah, that is literally what they believe and what they are trying to bring into place. If any of this sounds parallel to Israel, that should not surprise you. Okay, this idea of South Africa being a promised land for the Boere. Okay, even though they believed in a Joodse gevaar and they were not pro-Jewish, a lot of Jewish people in South Africa were anti-apartheid. So Bright Blue comes to mind. Right, so there's actually a song that's illegal in Russia by Bright Blue. I've had it on my channel many times. Bright Blue, Weeping. It's a South African anti-apartheid song. And these are 4 Jewish brothers who spoke out against apartheid. There is a lady by the name of Helen Joseph, who I believe was also Jewish. Ruth First, I'm pretty confident, was Jewish. And so was her husband, Joe Slovo. Most people for years thought he was even a black man because he started the armed resistance against apartheid. So these 2 countries have been interlinked for a long time because of the year 1948. 3 things happened, very significant, changed the course of history, and were very ironic. The one was that people of the UN all got together, had a nice tea party, and said, never, never, never again are we going to do what happened in the world wars. Okay? Number 2, apartheid started being implemented in South Africa, officially. And number 3, apartheid started being implemented in Israel. Okay, and many South Africans, I've realized, are actually oblivious to this and why the ANC has had a relationship with Palestine for a long time versus the Nats having a relationship with Israel for a long time, and the cross-funding that happened between the two. Don't take my word for it. Go and fact-check me on this, okay? But how this concerns you as Americans is, please be aware, they will shake hands with whomever they see an advantage with, okay? In the mind of an Afrikaner nationalist, of the kind of Afrikaner that wouldn't even speak English, at the end of the day, you are a Soti, that is an English speaker. In their minds, you are not that different from the British. Who are the British to them? Well, they were the first people, and this is Afrikaner nationalists and just normal Afrikaners and other South Africans, the first people ever to be put into concentration camps. The British invented concentration camps. The first modern war in history happened here on South African soil. The world had never seen that level of devastation before, ever. So pivotal was this moment that had one bullet gone astray on one of those hills, the course of history would have changed. Because on one random day, there were 3 men on a hill. The one man was Sir Winston Churchill. The other man was General Louis Botha. The other man was Mr. Mahatma Gandhi. And he was carrying bodies here in South Africa. And had one bullet gone astray, history as you know it would have been a whole different thing. World War something would have... Listen. Okay? Later on, South Africa, in terms of the English and the Afrikaans, okay, would go through a reconciliation period the first time we did that. But it looked something like this. Hey, Buddha, where are the British? We're so sorry we orphaned all your kids and starved you and put you into concentration camps. Okay? And did all of this to you? So the British were all like, hey, we're so sorry, Afrikaners, that we did all of this to you. And other South Africans of all races actually fought in that war alongside the Buddha. Okay? They said, you know what? We're going to make it up to you. Here's what we'll do. Let's be buddies. And together, even though we've done all of this to you, please forgive us. Together, let's work together to oppress all the black and brown people. Okay, essentially. Not in so many words, but there was a treaty signed called the Treaties of Vereniging, and that is my interpretation of it. Okay? Go look it up. Treaties of Vereniging. I'll spell it for you, okay? Anyway, the Treaties of Vereniging was like a founding document. It was one of those things. Vereniging means uniting. Literally, the USA, your country, is known as the Verenigde Staten van Amerika, the United States of America, right? Vereniging means uniting. So they united. And there's this one little line where they say, and we're going to give you charge of your natives. And it was one of those first, like, founding documents that became apartheid, eventually. Okay? So that's just some insight into that. You go do your own research and fact check me. I don't care. I'm doing most of this from memory, okay? But just to give you some insight into how these people think, here is one of those interpretations of the translations so that you can get an idea of how the Christianity buys into this and the sense of white supremacy does, okay? It has been a privilege to translate this very important book, a book with a clear message from a prophet of the Almighty God to his people, not only not only present in the southern point of Africa, but to all the Western world. If one reads these visions of the seer, Nicholas van Rensburg, one finds the hand of Almighty God always present, surely guiding his people towards their destiny according to his will through all the errors made by his stiff-necked people out of own choice. The time of destiny is on the horizon, and like the sun at dawn, only a faint light is visible, but as the sun rises over the horizon, its light suddenly becomes bright and clear. So will all the time of destiny. Okay, blah, blah. They believe in God, and a lot of these Afrikaans millionaires are pouring spirits into the ear of your president, guys. Of your president. And he's eating out of their hands. Okay, let's look at another prophecy, and then I'll finally get to the thought exercise I promised you. What would happen if apartheid did come to America? Once again, I'm not threatening that it will. I'm just doing a thought exercise, okay? Because I trust you. I trust you as Americans to organize, to prepare. I don't think that you're vulnerable based on the size of your population and your resilience. However, I have made those mistakes before. Where I thought one thing about your country and something else was proven. Okay, I don't really want to go back to all the stuff that happened in 2020 leading up to January 6th. Okay, I got in a lot of trouble, frankly, for calling out what happened in January 6th, particularly the government's response in my own personal life. We'll talk about that another time.
Sinner sees. In the east, there appears a woman who goes to the west. She is dressed in black. Following her are red cattle, and between the cattle there is a young black man. The cattle and the black man come straight towards me. Interpretation by Boy Musman.
Okay, there's a woman to the west. You try and interpret that prophecy. Okay, she's dressed in black. Following her, you've got red cows. In between the cows, there's a young black man. Okay, he may literally just have seen that and dreamt about it. That's all I'm saying. Okay, but here's the interpretation.
The red cattle are the British. The young black man represents bad intentions aimed directly at the Afrikaner people. Sinner is accused as the inciter of rebellion.
Okay, for the South African audience, let's look at what the translation would said. Okay, would have said. Okay, and die Zuite kom. Wait, where is it? The kind of language that is used in this thing, I just want to show you. I was hoping to show you. It's not the kind of language we would find appropriate in South Africa today. Some of these words would even be illegal to say. In Europa is 'n groot kraal met vet beeste. Die beeste is 3 soorte: vaal, swart en rooi. Die beeste kom uit die kraal en toe vlug die vaans na die weste. Die aarde word donker. In die ooste kant is 'n wa lank van yzer, excuse me if I don't know how to pronounce that, onder 'n groot klip en hy wikkel die klip. Ek is by Wolmerandstad en trek nuwe veld uit die swartes. Okay, there are a couple of K words in here. Both of the K words, the one that refers to Indian people and the one that refers to black people, are in here as well, okay? Again, I just think that's how people spoke in this era. But what I'm trying to say to my South African audience is they're comfortable with that kind of language. I just can't find it now. And as I said, I don't love reading all of this, okay? But I don't think anybody should be ignorant of it. You should go look at it once in your life so you can actually be literate in what is going on. And those of you more intelligent than me, please speak about it with more authority. Right. So, what would happen if apartheid came to the United States? If, let's pretend now that those Afrikaner nationalists could quite literally convince your government to have an experiment in apartheid. Okay, so for the purposes of this exercise, I chose a random state. I chose Tennessee. No idea why I chose Tennessee, but I'm using Tennessee as the first state that they're going to implement this theoretical apartheid on. This is not really happening. This is all in Nikki's head. Okay, so as an Afrikaner nationalist, what they would do, or what they actually did, was they were very inspired by the Jim Crow laws, but they were like, okay, how can we make the Jim Crow laws even better? So what they would do is they would not just separate you guys into white, Latino, and black with the Native Americans in the background. They would make sure that you lived in your own areas. Okay, you know what segregation is, but they would further separate you. Okay, so just by example, your more Irish, Scots, British white people would live on one side of town, and your more German, what we call Afrikaans people, so German, Dutch people would live on the other side of town. Tension would start between the two of them. Okay, one level below them, and you guys have had something like this in America, would be the Jews, Greeks, Italians, and Portuguese. So your more Mediterranean white folk, okay? They would all have to live in their own blocks or whatever. They'd be allowed to, at the same schools and all, but at school, they'd be treated as second-class citizens, right? Not allowed would be different races, but it would go further than that. Okay, if you were black, let's say that you were a black person from Florida, you would have to go live in Florida block in the black area. If you're a black person from Arkansas, you'd have to live in Arkansas block, okay? If you were a black person from Louisiana, you'd have to go live in Louisiana block. You wouldn't get, even if you're black, living in black block, you can't come from Louisiana and go live in Arkansas block. That's not going to happen, okay? If they could further separate you as Florida into Jacksonville, black person versus, and white, whatever your race is, you'd say in your racial group, but you'd go further. They could further separate you into Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, Miami. You know, that's where you originate from. You'd be forced to stay there, right? Now, let's assume that all the states spoke different languages, right? In the middle of the night, they do stuff like this. They would, say, for instance, go to Arkansas block, okay, in Tennessee. And they would be wearing blackface. They'd literally polish their face in the middle of the night, and they would hire some guys from Florida block, you know, some sellouts, and get them to do some crime resulting in the unaliving of people. And they'd make sure that everybody was speaking Florida language, right? So Florida-ish, or Florida speak, so that everybody in Arkansas block would have this mistrust. When they woke up and they found the bodies lying there, they'd be like, well, we heard murderers last night, they must be from Florida block, you know? And so that would create mistrust between an Arkansas black person versus a New York black person versus a Florida black person, etc., etc., etc. Okay? All the black folk would live a life very similar to that of Skid Row. All the Latino folk would live a life similar to that of what white Americans live in trailer parks, and then the white Americans would live a different kind of life. Okay? Anything above that. Okay? It wouldn't be that the others would be quite inaccessible to you, but even if you had those jobs, people from black bloc, like let's say a doctor came from black bloc, he would be allowed to nurse or doctor somebody from Latino bloc, but he wouldn't be allowed to nurse or doctor somebody from white bloc. Okay? So, yeah. There have been people like, literally this happened in apartheid South Africa, so it's like somebody from white bloc would be in the middle of a heart attack, but would say, no, I refuse that doctor, he comes from Latino bloc. Do you see? For the Latinos, aka the colored people, so we're similar to the Latinos there, what would further happen is you'd be separated by hair texture, so not just complexion, but hair texture. Even if they had to take you away from your mom and force you to live somewhere else in a reserve, right? If your mom had nappier or curlier hair versus straighter hair, you would be separated to the straighter hair guys would be closer to white bloc. Okay? Then the nappier hair Latinos, you guys would be beyond where the black folk are. Does that make sense? So we got white folk over here, all the jobs and opportunities are here. The geography makes a lot of sense. It's easy to travel through, right? Over here, you'd have your straighter haired Latinos. Over there, you'd have your black blocks. And then over here, you'd have your nappy haired mixed race, or any kind of mixed race people, further away, even the black folk. Okay. This would dictate what kind of jobs you get. If you tended to marry outside of your group chat, the people that you were supposed to, particularly if you try to marry or have a relationship with anybody in white bloc, particularly if you were gay or something like that, what would then happen is, you know how you guys in America have a sex offender list? You would be on the same registry. And the reason I say that is because of the Immorality Act. The Immorality Act made my birth personally illegal. And that's why Trevor Noah wrote a book called Born a Crime. Interracial relationships and homosexual relationships were seen as exactly the same as pedophilia. So if, like, according to my thinking, an Afrikaner nationalist would literally put you on a registry for that. Okay? I had a very good point just now, and I can't think about it. Oh, curfew. The curfew would be called white by night. So everybody would be allowed to go into white block. Let's say they're going to Nashville or whatever, right? They'd be allowed to go into night block. The curfew was called white by night. So they'd be allowed to go into white block, right? But when the bell rang, because in some towns a bell used to ring, in other towns it used to be sunset, in other towns it used to be midnight. When the bell rang, you would have to get out. Because if you were seen walking around being black in white block or being Latino or whatever in white block, you'd be shot dead on sight. That happened. That was called Die Wet van Transvaal is kakken betaal. The rule of the Transvaal, that's my province, or what my province was previously called, was shit your pants and pay. Unwritten rule. You wouldn't be allowed to meet in groups of more than 3 at any given point. Those would be illegal gatherings, except at church. The schools in the Latino and the black areas would not have school halls because they could potentially be used to overthrow the government. You wouldn't be allowed to go to the movies together. You wouldn't be allowed to perform for an interracial audience at all. It wouldn't be a thing where the whites are in the front of the bus and the blacks are in the back of the bus. No. You would have different bus stops and different buses and different taxis. Okay? Further than that, remember how I spoke about the Latinos, right? I forgot to say that you would have Latinos in Dominican bloc. You would have Latinos in Puerto Rican bloc. You'd have Latinos in Cuban bloc, right? There would be some spaces where a Cuban might be allowed to go to this restaurant. It's literally a sign would say bar for Cubans, where a Dominican can't go. Okay? And so there's that kind of thing. Your toilets and your bathrooms would be like bathroom for Dominican, bathroom for Latino, bathroom for black person, black male, bathroom for white, whatever. It would be that level. Do you see what I'm saying? So I know that you guys are used to racism. I know you're used to segregation, but I'm not confident that you're used to that level of refinement of racism. Like, the precision is what made apartheid. And if that's what making America great again means, and if that's just the white supremacists' wet dream. Okay? If you weren't from that state, now remember I told you that you have so when I say Dominican bloc or Puerto Rican bloc or Cuban bloc, I'm comparing that to Cape colored, Griqua colored, and Cape Malay colored, and other colored. We had 4 categorizations just for the colored folk, right? For the black folk, we had Zulu bloc, Sotho bloc, Xhosa bloc, Pedi bloc, etc., etc., etc. But if you were from out of state and you were living in those blocks, right, you would consistently have to carry something called a pass book. Not a passport. A passport is small. A pass book. We used to call it a dom pass. It means a dumb person's pass. Okay, a pass book. Sorry, I'm trying to find something that's thick enough to show you how thick it would be. It'd be about this thick. In fact, I think they were thicker. The pictures that I've seen of them were thicker. Oh, by the way, on your ID, your social security code, it would have a number. It would have a number on for your race classification. So I look at my ID, it says 02 on it. right? O2 was Cape colored. I've never been to Cape Town, but that's kind of like, even if you were classified, okay, an O2. So let's just say that Dominicans were O2, right? Then they might be classified as a New York Latino or New York Dominican, even if they were born in Tennessee. That doesn't matter. Either way, if you were from out of state, you'd have to then carry this passbook around with you, okay? And just so we're clear, the black folk are not going to get indoor plumbing. They're going to have outhouses. So let's say you were outside in the outhouse taking a poop while the police were doing their rounds. And by the way, by police, I mean they'll start with 18-year-old boys, because it'd be a white man's duty to go serve in the national service. So if you're taking a poop and you left your passbook inside, you would be a passbook offender. Immediately straight to jail. Go straight to jail. Do not pass begin. Do not collect $200. Okay? What I've just described to you is not like this dystopian fairy tale. It has already happened. It has already happened at the hands of Afrikaner nationalists, the Afrikaner National Party. We just call them the Nats. That was the system of apartheid. Okay, so what if you were like, fuck that, racism is bad? Cool. Solitary confinement for you. You would be defenestrated. Basically, what would happen to you in jail, instead of me describing it, would be some Guantanamo Bay shit, to put it in Americanese. Some Guantanamo Bay shit is what happened. If you were a white person that was a white liberalist and said that was bad, they would see you as enemy number one. So they would go out of their way to be more brutal to you, just for saying, guys, I think racism's kind of wrong. Okay, a friend, my mom's best friend's cousin, for real, she got 10 years in jail for giving books to black people that they weren't supposed to read. Okay, so yeah, she got it here at Constitution Hill. It's now become the Constitutional Court. So that's the kind of vibe that would happen, some Guantanamo Bay shit. Okay. Eventually, see, we had the 1976 Soweto uprising. So eventually they would change. You see how you guys are English speakers? They would change so that you guys would have to, like, let's say you're like in 8th grade. They'll be like, okay, cool. You know how you've been learning in English your whole life? Well, now you got to learn Afrikaans. And you're like, cool, I take Afrikaans as like a side language. They'd be like, no, buddy. Nah. They would make you learn geography, science, whatever in Afrikaans, and they take away subjects because they'd be like, no, you don't actually need that subject, bro. You don't. Okay. You can learn housekeeping and gardening and a bit of language and some mathematics or something, some basic mathematics, because you're black. If you were a Latino person who worked in the same company as a white person, you and your company wanted to have a Christmas party, they would have to write to the government for permission to have a Christmas party, interracially, and the government would write a letter back, something to the effect of, okay, that's cool, as long as the white people and Latino people sit separately and the white people don't dance. Okay. Cool. Anybody from out of state who was white would be allowed to have private schools and would be allowed to take people of different races from them if they could economically afford them, but they would be seen as having foreign ideas. Okay? And some people, even if they were born in Tennessee at this point, with ancestry in other states, they would forever not be seen as a citizen of Tennessee. Okay, so that's the best way that I can translate apartheid thinking into Americanese. That's the best way that I can. All of this literally happened. I just substituted words like Florida for words like Zulu. I just substituted words like Dominican for words like Cape Malay. Yeah, that's my best thought exercise. I don't know what that sounds like to you. It probably sounds dystopian. Again, I don't think this is like an immediate threat or anything, but I am aware that white nationalist billionaires seem to be speaking into the ear of your president, and he seems to be lapping it up. And you'd be surprised at how quickly the tide can turn, because even on South African soil. Ooh, I forgot about something. Honorary white status. Did you know that African Americans used to get honorary white status in South Africa? So did the Japanese, whereas the Chinese didn't. So anybody who's rich, so let's say I'm a South African now. So you're living in Tennessee as an American citizen, but I'm a South African who by American standards is black. Cool. But let's say I'm a rich bitch. Great. And let's say I was like, no, I just want a visa to Tennessee, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to incite anti-government anything. I'm just going there to, I don't know, get some oil. Okay, let's assume there's oil there. Okay, they'd be like, cool, Nikki, you then get honorary white status, which would mean that I could sit on the benches as opposed to everybody else had to not sit on benches. I could take the white people buses, etc., etc., etc. Oh, and the geography of the towns would be filled with cul-de-sacs. And the reason for that is to make it easier for the police to corner you, even if you knew your own town. Because there would be police raids and dogs coming into your house at night. And what else? And that's in every town that wouldn't be white, right? What else would happen? The geography. Oh, yeah. And the browner the town, the more they would allow more liquor stores per square mile, kind of thing. Because in the wider towns, a liquor store would not have been allowed, X amount of miles close to a school, X amount of miles close to a church, right? But they would allow more of those in the browner towns. Okay, they would be cool with like the black people and the Latinos marrying, but they wouldn't be cool if one of you were with a white person. And if you were caught, your underwear would be paraded in court as evidence. Okay, never mind what might happen in solitary confinement, etc., etc., etc. Okay, I feel here the need to show you the speech by Nelson Mandela to show you that he got 27 years in jail basically for making this speech. Please give me a second. I just need to show it to you, okay? I'm not winning here with the thing. Yeah, let's get my big head out the way.
My baby's head is not big, thank you.
Your baby's head is not big. Your baby's head is big, Scotty. I want to show them anybody who spoke out against racism, just as an example. It's one person, the most famous one thousands of people did this. So let us have a look. Oh, by the way, if there was a bus accident or a car accident, let's say 5 Latino people passed away, 1 Native American passed away, 5 black folk passed away, there'd be like 11 people. And let's say 3 white people passed away, they would say 3 people and 11 natives passed away, is what they would say. So yeah, that's how the news broadcast would go. And it would be such a level of racism that even the white folk who would be living in it would have this deep cloak of shame. And that one day, the first time they ever got to vote against it, 70% of them would. Okay? Okay, so yeah, you try to speak out against this, this is how it would go. 27 years in jail for you on an island prison.
Africans want to be paid a living wage. Africans want to perform work which they are capable of doing, and not work which the government declares them to be capable of. We want to be allowed to live where we obtain work and not be endorsed out of an area because we were not born there. We want to be allowed and not to be obliged to live in rented houses which we can never call our own.
Did you hear that? We want to do work. So if you guys said, hi, I'm Tyrone, hi, I'm Lupita, I'd like to do work that I'm capable of, I'd like to be able to live close to work, you would get 27 years in jail and be put into solitary confinement and also be labeled a terrorist.
To be part of the general population and not confined to living in our ghettos. African men want to have their wives and children to
Oh,
live with them.
did I forget to mention that? So mostly in this thought exercise where we have the perfect apartheid system in Tennessee, let's say you're from Florida, you'd have to leave your wife back home taking care of the kids while you move to Tennessee, just by way of example, to do work. Okay, or while you left your wife in Washington State or in San Francisco and only basically get to see her at Christmas, and that would have a severe impact on the black family structure as well as brown family structure.
Where they work, and not to be forced into an unnatural existence in men's hostels. Our women want to be with their men folk and not to be left permanently widowed in the reserve. We want to be allowed out after 11 o'clock at night.
We want to be allowed after 11 o'clock at night. There he's talking about the curfew, white by night.
And not to be confined to our rooms like little children. We want to be allowed to travel in our own country and to seek work where we want to, and not where the Labor Bureau tells us to.
You see what he's saying? Your race would determine where you are allowed to work.
We want a just share in the whole of South Africa. We want security and a stake in society.
Now I know what y'all thinking. Man, I would get my gun and I would shoot. I want to tell you how that would work out for you. Please listen to Nelson Mandela in the background while I find that for you.
Above all, my lord, we want equal political rights because we want equal political rights because without them, our disabilities will be permanent. I know this sounds revolutionary to the white in this country because the majority of voters will be Africans. This makes the white man...
I'm sorry, did you think that you were going to get to vote? If you weren't white, if in this thought exercise? Nope.
fear democracy. But this fear cannot be allowed to stand in the way of the only solution which will guarantee racial harmony and freedom for all.
Racial harmony and freedom for all? Nope, you would be called a terrorist for that, okay? So just so that you're clear on what would happen, if you got your gun out and you were like, nope, because I know you guys have a right to resist in America, right? And so here's the Battle of Athlone, Anton Franch. What would happen if you stood up to that? So I've made this video before. One colored boy, 21 years old, who had to fight 40 policemen. I'll never stop talking about him. So get tired if you want.
His kind heart in always putting other people first, and also because of his fearlessness at such a young age. After being inspired by Ashley Creel, Anton would go on to become one of the greatest freedom fighters to have come from the Cape Flats. That's a fact. In seeing the hardship and struggle of his people, he developed a ferocious appetite for politics, and he would mobilize thousands of young people in Cape Town's fight against apartheid. At the
Right to protest, right? That's an American right, no?
age of just 17, this young colored man from Modderdam High would go on to receive specialist military training in Angola and prove himself to be a gifted leader and MK guerrilla soldier that the apartheid special forces would never forget. On the 17th of November 1989, while living in a rented room in Athlone, the secret police surrounded the house where Anton was in. The police took up positions on every side of the house, cut down bushes, and ensured they had a clear line of sight to the young colored man that was so revered that they would need a small army to take him out. Just after midnight, they attempted to enter the home, but quickly retreated, having only removed the Noordin family who also lived in the house. You see, Anton wanted to ensure that the family was safe, as he knew that this fight was his fight for them and all his people that were still oppressed. Anton had no intention of surrendering, and it may have been for two reasons. Firstly, he knew they would probably kill him in detention like they killed his hero Ashley Creel only 2 years earlier, who was also from Bonteheuwel. And secondly, He may be tortured to the point where under that excruciating duress, they may do everything to get him to betray his comrades, which is exactly how they received information of his location in Athlone. So, armed with only a pistol and an AK-47, while surrounded by about 40 heavily armed policemen, Anton van die Bontas waited for them to make their move. The apartheid police attempted to convince Anton to surrender. Following his defiance, at 12:30 a.m., they opened fire. And as expected, this young colored man who believed in the liberation of his people and all South Africans fired back, and he fired back hard. This would continue for several hours, and after
He fired back and he fired back hard. Now, I know you guys say, our black people don't take that, our this people don't take that. I think you guys assume, what I hear as a South African with my South African ears is that you guys assume that we just took it lying down. The whole world's money, the most powerful people, your country included, funded this shit. There's a reason why your trains work. There's a reason why the wheels in your car turn. Everything that's been made in your house, that's been made in a factory, needed diamonds, didn't it? Show me your diamond mines. You needed oil. You needed all kinds of minerals, didn't you? Show me your mines. Those come from Africa. And administratively, they come from South Africa. Don't take my word for it. I'll show you a video from my channel of your president back in 1986 confirming what I say.
about 7 hours of trying to kill this young activist, the only way that 40 men could stop one man was with a bomb. A grenade was thrown into the room where Anton was, and the battle for Athlone was over. This young colored superhero that Marvel never gave us said something in the midst of that battle that should inspire every young person today who's facing adversity or anything else. He laughed at them and said, "Ko haal my as julle kan." When the police tried to
He said to them, come and get me, if you can.
get him to give up, and even shouted to him, which showed their true intentions, "Kom uit jou vark, vandag gaan jy vrek." What Anton would reply became the hallmark of his resilient spirit.
They said to him, come out, you pig. Today you will die the death of an animal.
His one reply is a war cry to you and me, that when you are faced with injustice, when you are faced with hardship, when you are faced with sickness, when you are faced with a global pandemic, when you are faced with the biggest storm in your life, when you are faced with people that don't know you but want to talk cack about you, when you are faced with people that want to cancel you as if they were the ones that gave birth to you, as if they went through what you went through, and even when you are faced with death, don't run, don't give up, don't fear, don't lose hope, but just like Anton that stood there, Manalin, know who you are, know what you're fighting for, and let them know, go home as julle kan. The saddest part of Anton's story, and so many...
Right. So as you guys listen more to Nelson Mandela's speech, I want to find you your own president, the president of the United States, the POTUS, talking about just how much of you guys gained from apartheid unknowingly.
It is not true that the enfranchisement of all will result in racial domination. Political division
Gaza is now...
is entirely artificial. And when it disappears, so will the domination of one color group by another. The ANC has spent half a century fighting against racism. When it triumphs, as it certainly must, it will not change that policy. This then is what the ANC is fighting. Our struggle is a truly national one. It is a struggle of the African people.
Okay, so before you hear Nelson Mandela's following inspiring words, which most South Africans know off by heart, here with your president, the president of the United States in the 1980s, or maybe in the 1970s. I'm so sorry. I'm a bit too young to remember when exactly it was. Explaining just how much you gained from apartheid, and when that kind of money is behind what you're facing, resilience only goes so far. Okay, so let me see if I can find it.
South Africa matters because of who we are. One of 8 Americans can trace his ancestry to Africa.
100% of Americans can trace their ancestry to South Africa, okay? 100% of everybody is the birthplace of humanity.
Strategically, this is one of the most vital regions of the world. Around the Cape of Good Hope passes the oil of the Persian Gulf, which is indispensable to the industrial economies of Western Europe.
You got your oil from us, Western world.
Southern Africa and South Africa are repository of many of the vital minerals: vanadium, manganese, chromium, platinum, for which the West has no other secure source of supply.
Many minerals that I can't pronounce, for which the West has no other secure source of supply. To translation, you can't live without them.
The Soviet Union is not.
Right? That is mineral after
Africa
mineral.
and South Africa are repository of many of the vital minerals: vanadium, manganese, chromium, platinum, for which the West has no other secure source of supply.
So that is the treasure that they wanted. Right now, the most valuable country is not South Africa, it is Congo. Our computers will not work without her. Our cell phones and anything with a battery will not work without Congo. So she is now the heart that fuels the world. Very recently, that was South Africa. And Southern Africa in general. That is the countries that surround my country. Right now, the treasure that they are looking for is not diamonds. It is not gold. It is not manganism, schmism, bluism that the Western world apparently can't live without, that I can't pronounce, sorry. Right now, the treasure that they may be after, if my fear is correct rather than my hope, the treasure is the dignity of the American people. It is you. And I believe you to be a feared people by your government. I believe that there is a reason why so much money goes into miseducating you. And I believe that there is a reason that so much money goes into propaganda for you. And I believe that you have some very refined, well-educated, you can get a degree in communications in America, right? Well-educated propagandists who have skills that are not outside of making this kind of stuff seem normal to you. Okay, so that is a minor threat. It's part of why I did this thought exercise, but I don't mean to fearmonger. Just if it happens, that's what it would look like, is what I'm trying to say. But there is always hope. And I believe in your resilience. I believe in it because we have resilience. As South Africans, I believe that it's in you no matter what. No matter how much I criticize you on this channel. By the way, through my South African lens, you and the British fit into one WhatsApp group. I know you might find that surprising because you probably perceive me as British or closer to them than you are. But in the mind of a white nationalist South African, Afrikaner, you definitely are a Soti. That word means, it used to be a slur, we just kind of use it as a pet name now for all English speakers. That means someone who has one foot in South Africa and one foot in England, because they speak English, think in English, they have English notions and ideas, right, based on the English language. They have proven that they're willing to shake hands with anybody who can give them an economic advantage just because they are in your nation. Even just because you are white or this, that, or the other thing does not mean that they are unlikely to see you as a Soti, as a threat. The same kind of threat that a Jew might see a German as. He may be cool with Germans or whatever, but if he's been through concentration camps himself, or if his grandparents were, he may have a distrust for, let's say, an Austrian, a Swiss person, or a German who speaks German purely because of their shared language, right? He'd see them as kind of a WhatsApp group if he were this kind of mindset. So do you hear what I'm saying? In the same way that you would not paint all Jews with that brush, can I also ask you, just because they're African, don't paint all white Afrikaans South Africans with that brush, please, because the majority are not like that. Okay, 1,500 were invited to America, 49 showed up so far, from what we know. Okay, so I don't mean to demonize them. They have been demonized far too much by the English-speaking world, and you don't always get their perspectives. And this is not a call to scapegoat them. We're talking specifically about the nationalists and what the nationalists are capable of, right? And capable of encouraging others to do. A catch-22, a moral injury, situations in which people, good people, will do things they're not proud of. And for everybody involved in that, white included, there is a cloud of shame that can be so heavy, right? And so let's listen to Nelson Mandela's final words before he went into prison at the Rivonia trial, and then his words to give you hope, because I'm not just here to fearmonger, his words when he came out.
Inspired by our own suffering and our own experience, it is a struggle for the right to live.
That is what you have to preserve, the right to live.
During my lifetime, I have dedicated my life to this struggle of the African people. I have fought
against white domination. I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal
for which I
hope to live and to achieve.
To live and to see realized.
But my Lord, if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. Okay, so he got 27 years for that. 27 years later, so you guys came up with something called the Mandela effect, where you even believe that he was dead. Okay, so he gets out of prison and he says this. (1991). Okay.
Your business.
So in 1991, he says this.
Like this.
Never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another and suffer the injustice. And suffer the indignity of being the scum of the world. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. I thank you.
Okay, so he mentioned there feeling like the scum of the world. All South Africans felt like that. All. Because of the things that they were forced to do to just preserve their morals and their sense of dignity and their right to make friends with whomever they made friends with. You know? Everybody felt like the scum of the world. And most people aren't like that. Most people don't want that. Okay? They don't want to feel that way. And testimony to that is the fact that in 1992, I can't believe I've shown a lot of this on my channel before, but I assume that this video, will reach a whole new audience, right? So in 1992, white people for the first time got a chance to vote against apartheid, and they got one chance to vote and say, would you like democracy?
Good morning. Welcome to the special TV1 newscast. White South Africans are flocking to the polls today in one of the country's most historic referendums, a referendum which will decide the future of South Africa. We have reports on the latest developments at some of the polling stations.
So if your guess was what was the result of that vote, that would be 70%. 70% of white people said that in spite of the privilege that they still hold today in this year 2025, back in 1992 they said no, they don't want that level of racism, no matter what carrots are dangled in front of them. You remember that guy earlier, the guy with the beginning of this video, the guy with the 5-bedroom house who left his mama in what he claims to be a genocide? He lives in the parts of the country, the part of the Transvaal, which is now divided into Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Gauteng, and one of the province, I want to say Northwest. He lives in the part of the country that had the most votes. No, they don't want democracy. He's nostalgic for that period in history that I just described, using Tennessee as an example. Okay. I hope this video has been enlightening. I hope it's been intellectually stimulating. I hope it has prepared you for what potentially could come if that happened. But no, I don't mean to fearmonger. I'd like to think that it wouldn't happen, but you never know. In this world, what anything surprise you? A lot of things that have happened in the last decade, I would say, that I never thought I would see. But my favorite astrologist said that we're going to see a world as millennials, we're going to lose our innocence and see a world we never thought possible. Guys, this has been Nuance with Nikki, the nitty-gritty. Even if it's shitty, take this with a pinch of salt, but this has happened before, and the same kind of people who are wishing for it are now on American soil in those United States. Don't let them do that to you. You deserve better. Okay, thank you so much for coming to my channel, and I do apologize for those who have seen all this footage before. By the way, Victoria, wherever you are, my beloved audience member, I have not forgotten you or my Black Excellence Tuesdays. I just haven't had the heart to do them lately. Okay, because of my mom's death and all that came with that afterwards. Guys, it's been real. Cool, thanks for joining. Ciao for now.